This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, December 9th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A new era in Syria as the Assad regime falls. I'm Steve Futterman.
President-elect Trump sits down for a broadcast interview.
I'm the chief law enforcement officer. You do know that.
I'm Clayton Neville.
New developments in the search for the man police believe shot and killed United Healthcare's CEO. I'm Pamela Furr.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a drone over New Jersey. The FBI is now on the case.
It's a somber time for the U.S. insurance industry, and it has insurers rethinking business models and employee safety. I'm Peter Schacknow.
Juan Soto will sign sports' richest contract to play for the New York Mets.
Donald Trump met privately with the president of France ahead of the reopening ceremonies for the Notre Dame Cathedral. I'm Jackie Quinn.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The government of President Bashar al-Assad of Syria, which had kept rebel forces at bay for more than a decade with Iranian and Russian military support, collapsed in less than 2 weeks. Steve Futterman reports on what happens next in Syria and the American reaction.
One day after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, people in Syria were celebrating. This woman talked about how members of her family were killed by the Assad regime.
My cousin, my son, my family, all of them.
At the White House, President Biden welcomed the developments.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country.
But there was also a note of caution. The rebels who deposed Assad, he said, have in the past been connected with terrorist organizations.
Make no mistake, some of the rebel groups that took down Assad have their own grim record of terrorism and human rights abuses. We've taken note of statements by the leaders of these rebel groups in recent days, and they're saying the right things now. But as they take on greater responsibility, we will assess not just their words, but their actions.
Dr. Amy Austin Holmes is a professor at George Washington University.
It's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen. I hope that they will be able to come to an agreement and find some way to govern that is inclusive of all Syrians from all backgrounds.
In Damascus, the overwhelming feeling is joy. Joy that Bashar al-Assad is gone and decades of dictatorship by the Assad family is over.
It's an indescribable feeling. We're so happy. After all the years of dictatorship we've lived through, we were in prison in 2014 and now we're out, thank God. We won because of our men and our fighters, and now we're at the moment that we're going to build the greatest Syria.
But in the Middle East, there's always concern about what will happen next. I'm Steve Futterman reporting.
President-elect Donald Trump sat down with NBC's Kristen Welker in his first one-on-one broadcast TV interview since winning the presidency. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports Trump was asked about a range of topics, including deportations and the potential of his administration opening an investigation into what many believe to be unproven fraud in the 2020 election.
On NBC's Meet the Press, President-elect Trump was asked about the investigation into the January 6th Capitol riot in the final weeks of his first presidency and referred to suggestions that he could pardon his supporters charged in the riot.
To the people who say that you're now directing your Justice Department to investigate 2020, and they want to move on.
Very careful. I think Pam is going to be great.
Precious resources.
By the way,
is that what you want them to do?
Just so you know, I have the right to do that, but I'm not interested in that.
Oh, you're not. You're not going to do that.
I'm not interested.
Okay.
I have the absolute right. I'm the chief law enforcement officer. You do know that. I'm the president. But I'm not interested in that. You know what I'm interested in? Drilling and getting prices down and stopping people from pouring into our border that come from prisons and mental institutions.
He also doubled down on plans for mass deportations in the interview.
We have to do our job, and you have to have a series of standards and a series of laws. And in the end, look, our country is a mess.
He insisted on going after the gangs.
People that have murdered numerous people are on our streets and in our farms, and we have to get them out of our country.
And regarding Dreamers, Trump said,
I will work with the Democrats on a plan, and if we can come up with a plan, but the Democrats have made it very, very difficult to do anything.
When asked by Meet the Press if Trump can guarantee his proposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada will not raise prices.
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow, but I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries.
Trump said that birthright citizenship has to end, and he opened the door to executive action on that front. The 14th Amendment, which guarantees the right of citizenship to anyone born in the U.S. or its territory. But Trump said we're going to have to get that changed. Quote, we'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. I'm Clayton Neville.
CEO murdered, suspect at large. When America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. An elongated area of rain will affect the eastern third of the United States today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm centered in the Great Lakes will have a cold front extending well to the south through portions of the northeast and continuing into the middle Atlantic and southeast today. There will be rain along this boundary from southern New York into southern New England and then continuing into West Virginia and Virginia as well as the Carolinas and much of the Gulf Coast states from easternmost Texas into Louisiana and continuing to Georgia and Florida. There could even be some heavier rain with thunderstorms and localized flooding in parts of Louisiana into Alabama. Just to the north of the rain in New York, enough cold air will remain in place for snow to form through northern New York into northern New England, and this will expand westward through the northern Great Lakes into portions of the northern plains where a few inches of snow will fall from the northern Minnesota area into northern Michigan. Meanwhile, a secondary piece of this system will be shifting southward through the central Rockies with snow forming over these mountains from southern Wyoming through Colorado and into northern New Mexico. Several inches of snow to as much as a foot will be possible by Tuesday morning. A few flurries and snow showers will also develop farther north in Montana as colder air starts to make its way into the region. The rest of the plain states and Midwest will be quiet overall with a mixture of clouds and sun, and temperatures will range from the 30s and 40s across the northern states and warm quickly to the mid-80s in South Texas. That's the weather across America. New Orleans, Louisiana will have a heavy rain and thunder today, which could lead to some localized flooding with a high of 71. Colder day in Fargo, North Dakota with periods of snow with a high of 31. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
I'm John Trout. Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The manhunt continues for the gunman who killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City. Pamela Furr has the latest.
Law enforcement says their investigation has them following leads in multiple states. Meanwhile, the backpack the shooter is wearing in surveillance video was found in Central Park on Friday. NYPD divers have been scouring the pond in the park all weekend long, looking for evidence including the distinctive murder weapon and the bicycle the suspect was seen pedaling away from the crime scene. New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
I don't want to do anything that's going to infringe on these investigators. Some of them have been up throughout the night while this investigation is taking place, but every piece is important to that puzzle.
In fact, he says the net is tightening.
We feel really good where we are. Finding the knapsack, getting the photos, the cab photo, looking at some of the evidence that is available to us, we feel really good where we are.
The FBI has offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction on top of a $10,000 reward offered by the NYPD. Now, the shooting has shocked many in the insurance industry, while it's bringing up the conversation about insurance company practices. Congressman Ro Khanna on ABC's This Week says there's no justification for violence, but understands the frustration with the industry itself.
Why can't we have a rule that if a doctor prescribes something and if Medicare, traditional Medicare, is going to cover it, then private insurance companies should be forced to cover it? I mean, it's absurd in this country what's going on.
I'm Pamela Furr.
And the fallout continues. We'll have more in business coming up. Residents in New Jersey feel like they're being left in the dark after a number of drone sightings in the skies over the Garden State. The FBI is now involved after reports of drones flying near Newark International Airport, Donald Trump's Bedminster home, and in nearly half of all state counties, including near reservoirs, military installations, and other critical infrastructure. Governor Phil Murphy has met with the Department of Homeland Security over the purported unauthorized drone flights. The FBI announced special flight restrictions in parts of New Jersey because of the drones. The end of an era's when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. CNBC's Peter Schacknow is in with a focus on healthcare stocks.
Last week's fatal shooting of United Health Group executive Brian Thompson was a shocking event, which shined a spotlight on dissatisfaction with how health insurers do business. That's at least part of the reason insurance stocks came under pressure on Friday, but that, of course, pales in comparison to safety concerns, and that is currently the focus of numerous discussions within the industry, according to Dave Commendat. He's former Boeing chief security officer who now runs his own risk management firm.
It's clearly got CEOs and boards of large corporations around the country and, quite frankly, around the world, quite concerned with their executive protection programs. And many of my colleagues this week are in those types of discussions with their CEOs and their boards, talking about the programs that they have in place.
Investors cheered Friday's November jobs report, which showed that a better-than-expected 227,000 non-farm jobs were added to the U.S. economy in November. But a larger-than-forecast increase in worker earnings is sparking at least some inflation concerns and has people wondering why the Fed continues to cut rates. Bill Egan is chief investment officer of J.P. Morgan's Absolute Return Fixed Income Group.
We're growing at 3.2% this quarter, just grew at 3%. Inflation dropped to the mid-2s, now is turning up into the 3s. You've got equity market at all-time highs, up 30%. No, they're going the other way. They're cutting into an accelerating economy with inflation turning up.
The two most prominent sports betting firms, FanDuel and DraftKings, are under new scrutiny. Two U.S. senators are calling for the FTC and the Justice Department to investigate the two companies. Republican Mike Lee and Democrat Peter Welch say the two may have been working together to squelch competitors even after their proposed merger was blocked. And popular video app TikTok is one step closer to being banned in the U.S. after an appeals court upheld a law mandating that TikTok's Chinese parent sell its U.S. operations by January 19th or face a ban.
Singer Taylor Swift about to wrap up her world tour, but the money just keeps on getting counted.
Well, estimates vary, but it's safe to say that it added billions to the global economy over the 149 shows in 5 continents, ending in Vancouver this weekend. There's perhaps no bigger expert on the Taylor Swift effect than Kara Reynolds, economics department chair at American University, and perhaps more importantly, the instructor of a course labeled Swiftonomics.
In the first 20 cities that she went to, there was about a $5 billion effect of direct spending, especially in the hospitality sector. On average, people who are going to the concert spend about $1,500, not just on the tickets, but it's on the outfits and the transportation, food.
And Reynolds points out that Swift has also had a positive economic impact on the National Football League, bringing new fans to football, thanks to her relationship with Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs.
And there you go, CNBC's Peter Schacknow. Knocking it out of the park when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. One of baseball's biggest stars now has the largest contract in sports history. Superstar outfielder Juan Soto will join the New York Mets, agreeing to a 15-year, $765 million deal. The contract also includes a $75 million signing bonus. Soto's historic signing comes 1 year after the Los Angeles Dodgers inked hitter and pitcher Shohei Ohtani to a 10-year, $700 million contract, but most of that money's deferred, making Soto's the overall richest in history. Soto's average pay will equate to $51 million annually. By comparison, the Oakland Athletics as a team paid their entire 26-man roster a combined $62 million last year. Shifting gears, President-elect Donald Trump has returned to America after visiting France, his first international trip since the November election. Correspondent Jackie Quinn has a follow-up.
At the Élysée Palace, French President Emmanuel Macron welcomed Donald Trump.
It's a great honor for French people to welcome you.
The two men are resuming the relationship they established during Trump's first term.
It's an honor to be here. We had a good time together, and we had a lot of success, really great success working together on defense and offense, too.
Trump said
the world is going a little crazy right now.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about that.
This private meeting came before the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, burned in a fire 5 years ago. First Lady Jill Biden is representing the White House at the event. I'm Jackie Quinn.
America in the Morning for Monday, December 9th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Global reaction to the fall of the al-Assad regime in Syria. I'm Clayton Neville.
Pearl Harbor remembrance, what led to the California school shooting, and some changes coming to America's prison system. We'll have those stories.
Stellantis is recalling hundreds of thousands of Ram trucks for a braking system problem. I'm Rita Foley.
Elimination plan by the FDA for Red Dye number 3.
Previous hits continue to dominate the box office. I'm Kevin Carr.
A pair of ruby slippers that Judy Garland wore in The Wizard of Oz has sold for $28 million. I'm Margie Zaraletta.
Back after these messages. Heavy rains continue for portions of the South. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Also on Snow Watch, AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm will shift southward into the central Rockies with snow forming over these mountains from southern Wyoming into Colorado and then also parts of northern New Mexico. Several inches of snow to as much as a foot can fall by Tuesday morning. And then we'll have a few flurries and snow showers also developing farther north in Montana as colder air starts to make its way into the region. Highs will be in the 20s and 30s. And a storm centered in the Great Lakes will have enough cold air in place in northern New York for snow to form and continue into northern New England. This will also expand westward through the northern Great Lakes into the northern plains, where a few inches of snow will fall from northern Minnesota into northern Michigan. This same system will have a cold front extending well to the south into portions of the northeast and continuing into the middle Atlantic and southeast today. There will be some rain along this boundary from southern New York into southern New England, and then continuing into West Virginia and Virginia, as well as the Carolinas and much of the Gulf Coast states from easternmost Texas into Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida. There could even be some heavier rain and thunderstorms with localized flooding in parts of Louisiana into Alabama. Most of the plain states and Midwest will be quiet overall with a mixture of clouds and sun. 30s and 40s across the northern states and warms quickly to the mid-80s in South Texas. And this is about 5 to 15 degrees above the historical average for early December. Along the west coast, there will be some dense fog in the valley in California, which will slowly break for some sunshine, but it could certainly lead to a slower start to the day. Otherwise, it will be dry with highs in the 30s and 40s in the northwest to mid-70s in the south. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The world is reacting to the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, a nearly half-century dictatorship brought down in a matter of days. The latest on the situation from correspondent Clayton Neville.
The fall of Syria's President Bashar al-Assad came as opposition groups seized the capital after 2 weeks of unrest. Al-Assad is said to have left the country with his family, reportedly granted asylum in Russia. Meanwhile, celebrations in Damascus. In Lebanon, thousands of Syrians headed to the border crossing to return to their home country. Still some uncertainty, but Jordanians say the news marks the end of an unjust and tyrannical rule. Others in the Middle East concerned that the fallout will lead to escalated fighting amid rebel groups in the region. In the U.S., lawmakers reacting. Republican Congressman Joe Wilson spoke to Fox News.
This is so good. This is so significant. The fall of the Assad dictatorship, the ripple effect of this is just going to be remarkable. It's truly, I believe, equivalent to the Berlin Wall, which led to a ripple effect of dozens of countries becoming free.
President Biden said he'll speak with leaders in the Middle East in coming days.
At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians.
He explained what led to the fall of the al-Assad regime.
We made clear from the start, sanction on Assad would remain in place unless he engaged seriously in a political process to end the civil war, as outlined by the UN Security Council resolution passed in 2015. But Assad refused. So we carried out a comprehensive sanction program.
The president told reporters how the U.S. plans to move forward.
First, will support Syria's neighbors, including Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel, should any threat arise from Syria.
And as far as the United States' presence in the region?
We will help ensure stability in eastern Syria, protecting any our personnel, against any threats, and will remain our mission against ISIS will be maintained, including the security of detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners.
President-elect Trump seemingly with a warning for Russia's President Vladimir Putin, who Trump encouraged in a statement to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine before the conflict there becomes, quote, far worse. This as ISIS targets in Syria have been hit with a barrage of U.S. airstrikes. U.S. Central Command says that over 75 targets were struck in the center of the country. CENTCOM explained that the strikes are meant to stop ISIS from taking advantage of the current situation in central Syria. I'm Clayton Neville.
The now deposed Assad left behind a collection of cars, including a red Ferrari F50, which routinely sell for over $3 million, a Lamborghini, a Rolls-Royce, and a Bentley, along with works of art and the trappings of several palaces in a nation that was dealing with decades of civil war and poverty. Assad and his family left Damascus by private jet and are now believed to be in Moscow. The dictatorship propped up by ties to Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. But with Russia mired in a war with Ukraine and depleted Hezbollah and Iranian forces decimated by Israel, Assad was left without the necessary military to withstand another fight. Correspondent Karen Shamas has more on who led the insurgency.
Abu Mohammed al-Julani, also more recently known by his given name, Ahmad al-Shara, the militant leader who led the stunning insurgency that toppled Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, has spent years working to remake his public image and that of his fighters. He renounced long-time ties to al-Qaeda and depicts himself as a champion of pluralism and tolerance. The extent of that transformation from jihadi extremist to would-be state builder is now put to the test. The 42-year-old al-Julani is labelled a terrorist by the United States. He has not appeared publicly since Damascus fell early Sunday, but he and his insurgent force, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, stand to be a major player in whatever comes next. I'm Karen Shamas.
Back here at home in Hawaii, there was a very somber observance that included two American heroes, one aged 102, the other 104, who stood and saluted those who fought and those who died on the 83rd anniversary of the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. With more, here's correspondent Jackie Quinn.
There were survivors of the Pearl Harbor attack on hand for the annual remembrance ceremony of the deadly bombing that killed more than 2,000 U.S. service members.
Navy Region Hawaii arriving.
The Navy hosting a remembrance every year at the site where Japan bombed the USS Arizona, killing some 2,300 service members, December 7th, 1941.
We guard in our hearts the sacred memory
of those who gave their lives here so long ago. Bless us, O Lord, as we humble ourselves in thy presence, paying tribute to our shipmates and other service members, those from what many have called the greatest generation, who so valiantly served our country, many of whom rest here today in honored glory, ever on patrol.
Admiral Stephen Kaler, commander of the Pacific Fleet.
We gather here today to remember the date which lives in infamy. 83 years ago today, on a beautiful morning, just like this one, Pearl Harbor was assaulted and the world changed. Today we have veterans among us who witnessed it with their own eyes, whose memories are seared with the chaos and violence and the devastation of that day. The rest of us must just imagine it.
There are estimated to be just 16 survivors who are at least 100 years old. Their valor highlighted to guide future generations. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Meteorologists meet their match with AI. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. You're with America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. While more details are emerging about the gunman, investigators are still putting the pieces together as to the motivation for a school shooting in Northern California. Correspondent Jennifer King is following the story.
We are absolutely devastated by this senseless act of violence. Our church members here in the Northern California Conference continue to pray for all of those who have been affected by this tragedy.
Police say 56-year-old Glenn Litton, who used a ghost gun to wound 2 kindergartners before killing himself at a school in Oroville, California on Wednesday, wrote about taking countermeasures in response to U.S. involvement in the Middle East.
He has a lengthy criminal history and history of mental health issues.
Butte County Sheriff Corey Honey.
His story was that his daughter had recently moved to Gridley and that he wanted his grandson to go to that school, and he was willing to pay for the tuition. As it turns out, that was all a lie.
The sheriff says Litton had attended a different school of Seventh-day Adventists in another town as a child, but investigators may never know why he connected the Feather River School to violence abroad in his mind. Butte County's district attorney said the gunman had searched online for guns and explosives and wrote notes to himself about planning a nonspecific mass incident. I'm Jennifer King.
The Bureau of Prisons nationwide is making big court-monitored changes ahead of the second Trump presidency. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
A legal settlement in the wake of rampant staff on inmate sexual abuse will force the Federal Bureau of Prisons to open its doors to a court-appointed monitor and publicly acknowledge pervasive misconduct at its now shuttered women's prison in California. The Bureau of Prisons and lawyers for women suing over abuse at the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California, filed a proposed consent decree on Friday. It mandates increased transparency and key protections for victims, including pathways to early release and home confinement. The agency's director will issue a formal public acknowledgement to victims of staff sexual abuse at FCI Dublin. I'm Norman Hall.
A number of car makers have issued recalls in the past 10 days, and as correspondent Rita Foley reports, the latest involves Stellantis and a group of their pickup trucks.
These are Ram heavy-duty pickup trucks. The problem is a faulty part that could cause certain braking and tracking systems to fail. The trucks in question are all model years 2017, 2018, and include the Ram 2500, 3500, 4500, and 5500. Stellantis said it will advise customers who may be affected about when they can get service, and it'll be free. In addition to recent recalls, Stellantis has been struggling with falling sales that have led to layoffs and contributed to ballooning inventory on dealer lots. Last quarter, Stellantis reported that net revenues plunged 27% from the same period a year ago. I'm Rita Foley.
It's in the ingredients of a number of candies, chewing gum, and also some desserts and treats, but it could also be causing cancer. The Food and Drug Administration could soon remove the ban on what's become known as red dye number 3. The Center for Science in the Public Interest claims that Red 3 is used in nearly 3,000 food products with no nutritional value, unlike some other artificial dyes. It's added by companies to make their products appear brighter and more colorful. Last year, California banned several food dyes, including Red 3, which had been banned by all nations in the European Union over 30 years ago. The old joke is, to be a meteorologist, you only have to be right 50% of the time. Google appears to have the last laugh. They say their DeepMind AI has come up with a weather prediction model with better than a 97% accuracy rate. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
Google DeepMind researchers have unveiled a new AI model for weather prediction called GenCast. In a paper published in Nature, DeepMind researchers said they have found that GenCast outperforms the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts, or ENS, and apparently is the world's top operational forecasting system. In a blog post, the DeepMind team said that while previous weather models were deterministic and provided a single best estimate of future weather, GenCast comprises an ensemble of 50 or more predictions, each representing a possible weather trajectory, creating a complex probability distribution of future weather scenarios. In testing, the research team trained GenCast on weather data up to 2018 and then compared forecasts for 2019, finding that it was more accurate 97.2% of the time. Google has plans to incorporate GenCast as part of its suite of AI-based weather models. For more tech stories, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
With Monday Sports on America in the Morning, here's Robert Workman.
Baseball's winter meetings officially begin today in Dallas, but last night, multiple outlets reported that outfielder Juan Soto has agreed to a free agent deal with the New York Mets, reportedly 15 years, $765 million, the largest contract in pro sports history. Sources add there's a $75 million signing bonus, what with Christmas right around the corner, and that the deal includes an opt-out after the 5th year, along with no deferred money and escalator clauses that could push the value over $800 million. The signing could also spark a whirlwind of other big-name free agent deals this week, now that the biggest domino has fallen. Also last night, the Classic Era Committee voted Dick Allen and Dave Parker into baseball's Hall of Fame. Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs chipped the Chargers 19-17. Matthew Wright's 4th field goal of the night doinked off the left upright and through as time ran out. Kansas City is now 12-1, clinching its 9th consecutive AFC West title. Eagles got by the Panthers for their 9th straight win. Saquon Barkley broke LaShawn McCoy's franchise rushing record with 4 games to play.
I think it's pretty cool. The most important thing was getting a win, but, being a fan of Shady's growing up and seeing the spectacular things he was able to do with the ball in his hand and, to be able to have my name match with him definitely means a lot.
Rams held off the Bills despite Josh Allen throwing for 3 touchdowns and running for 3 more. First player ever to do that. Sam Darnold had a career-best 5 TD passes as the Vikings flattened the Falcons. Wins for the Dolphins, Steelers, 49ers, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Saints, and Jaguars. The final college football playoff poll came out Sunday. Undefeated Oregon remains number 1 after winning the Big Ten title game. They'll get a first-round bye, along with SEC champion Georgia, Boise State from the Mountain West, and Big 12 champ Arizona State. NBA, the Heat upended the front-running Cavaliers 122-113. College basketball, top-ranked Kansas lost its 2nd straight game to an unranked opponent, falling at Missouri 76-67. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, Christmas gift idea, one of the most iconic props of cinematic history on the auction block. After these messages. Moana and Wicked continued to dominate, while a highly anticipated flick couldn't even crack the top 5. Let's go to the movies with our Kevin Carr.
Disney's Polynesian heroine Moana faced off against half a dozen new releases to easily remain atop the box office this weekend.
Finally, we're back to who we're meant
meant to be.
Moana 2 took in $52 million, bringing its domestic total to $300 million and its global cume to over $600 million.
Moana, show our people just how far we'll go.
That's a fantastic performance for a movie that was originally meant to be a streaming series on Disney+.
Let me tell you the whole story.
Universal's Wicked predictably took second place with $35 million. Totaling $320 million stateside so far, it's now in the top 5 highest-grossing films of the year.
The arena turned slaves into gladiators, the gladiators into free men.
Third place belongs to Gladiator 2, which grossed $12 million for the weekend. It is performing better overseas than it is at home, with a total of $368 million worldwide.
Let's save Christmas.
Amazon's Christmas action comedy Red One took 4th place with $7 million.
My turn!
And that leaves 5th place to the Indian Telugu language action thriller Pushpa The Rule Part 2 with $5.5 million.
We're talking global computer apocalypse.
The biggest newcomer of the weekend was Y2K, which barely stood a chance, crashing and burning into 8th place with a mere $2 million. I'm Kevin Carr.
Not just your run-of-the-mill footwear. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports on a pair of ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz that sold for an eye-popping price at auction.
There's no place like home.
Heritage Auctions had estimated the ruby slippers would sell for $3 million. Within minutes, bidding tripled that amount. Then phone bidders volleyed back and forth for 15 minutes.
Where's Kansas?
That's where I live. And I want to get back there so badly, I'm going all the way to Emerald City to get the Wizard of Oz to help me.
You're going to see a wizard?
With the auction house fee, the winning bidder will pay $32.5 million. That buyer is unknown. The Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, had made a play for the shoes and says it is not the winning bidder.
The ruby slippers, what have you done with them? Give them back to me or I'll... It's too late. There they are, and there they'll stay.
The shoes were on loan to the museum when they were stolen in 2005. The FBI recovered them in 2018. I'm Margie Zaraletta.
There's no place like America in the Morning. Our show this Monday, December 9th, 2024, is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.